Welcome to the Sunriver Anglers Fly Tying Corner, where each month we bring you a new fly pattern to give a try to on our Central Oregon lakes and rivers. In addition to showing you how to tie each pattern, I'll feature fishing technique tips and tricks, and I'll cover some of the entomology behind each pattern to help gain a better understanding of the bugs that we're trying to imitate. I have field tested each of the patterns that I feature each month to make sure that they catch fish. I'll cover tying instructions for the fly as well as materials to help you be able to recreate these patterns on your own vise. For this month's pattern, I'm going to tie a double bead golden stone. This is a fly that I use a lot when I really need to get down quick. It's a pattern I use on the Upper Deschutes on some of those deeper holes. It's also a really good pattern on the Metolius with its very well-known golden stone hatch. And lastly, on the Lower Deschutes, this is an excellent pattern for imitating golden stones on that stretch of water. The pattern can be tied with a single bead or a double bead. In this case, I use 2 beads just to get it down ultra quick. Let me briefly show the materials list for this fly pattern. As I tie the fly, I'll cover each material in a bit more detail so you can understand why I've chosen each material for the fly. I'm going to start this pattern with a Firehole 718 size 8 hook. This is a curved shank competition barbless hook that I like a lot for patterns like a golden stone. I like the curve on this hook for the pattern. I'm going to use 2 beads on this pattern. I'm using a 5/32 gold brass bead, and with 2 beads on the hook, this fly is going to get down really quick. For a thread, I'm using a 140 denier yellow Danville's flat wax thread. So let's get started tying this pattern. I'm going to attach my thread in between the 2 beads. I'm actually going to try and spread those beads out just a little bit to give myself some working room in between the beads for later steps. The next material are the round rubber legs that I'm going to use for the tail and the legs. We'll start with the tail. I'm going to tie on 2 strands extending about the length of the abdomen for a tail on this pattern. After you tie this material on, you can torque it and move it and push it about to get it to set right in the place where you want it. The next material we'll use, I'm going to tie in my gold wire. And then I'm going to tie in my turkey tail back at the back of the abdomen. So I'll start by tying in the gold wire for the rib. And then I'm going to tie in basically folding around the hook the turkey tail. I'm going to ultimately use this to fold all the way back over the first bead. And so I want that material to lie as flat as I can possibly get it when I fold it over. And so I bend it around the hook as I tie it on. So the next materials, I've blended some J-Fair's seal substitute with some ice dub, about 75-25. I'm going to spin just the tips of the dubbing onto the thread and wind it around with one wrap over the hook, and then I'll take the remainder and I'll go ahead and spin that around the thread and hold on to it, basically to create a yarn. I'm going to start at the front of the thorax. I'm going to wind all the way back to the tail set position, and then I'm going to turn around and come back all the way back to the back of that first bead. So I've got 2 layers of dubbing on this hook. If I need to add a little bit of dubbing as I go, I can stop and just layer over a few fibers over the existing and go ahead and spin it right onto the thread and keep going. Once I've finished my dubbing, I'm going to go ahead and fold the turkey tail all the way over the first bead. You noticed I've moved my thread all the way up and I just jumped over that first bead on top of the hook, and now I'm going to tie that material off. And from here I'll go ahead and rib the abdomen with the gold wire. I'll hop back over the bead on top of the bead and go ahead and tie the gold wire off right behind that bead. Next, I'm going to go ahead and refold that turkey tail back to the back of that first bead and again tie it off. This will become my thorax, and so I need to position it behind that back bead on the hook. So the next step is I'm going to tie on my rubber legs. And these rubber legs, I'm going to take about a 2-inch piece of rubber legs and I'm going to tie them on right over those thread wraps behind the bead, and then I'll hop over the bead into that center area between the 2 beads, and I'll tie off the front portion in that area. Now I've got to make sure I build up a little bit of thread base, otherwise those legs will suck into the back end of that bead and they won't lay right. So now I'm going to take some more of my dubbing and I'm going to go ahead and start at the in between the 2 beads and wind several wraps back to the back of the first bead and fill that area with dubbing. I'm basically going to cover up that second bead with dubbing material in this step. For the final material on this pattern, I'm going to make some more substantial legs to kind of fill in that thorax area. So I'm going to use a whiting Brahma hen feather. I'm going to go ahead and do a notch cut, basically using a V in the material to create the legs on this pattern. So I'm going to tie on the Brahma hen right at the front of the thorax area and create legs with it. And after I tie that in, I can kind of torque that around a little bit and move those legs to where I want them. So I'm going to go ahead and fold the remaining turkey back over that thorax area, tie it off right behind the lead bead, and go ahead and trim off the excess. Now the very last step is to perform a wet finish, and here I'm going to go ahead and dub on some material to cover up the thread wraps, and I'm going to actually wet finish with that dubbing material. It's kind of a tricky little move, but once you learn it, it does a great job giving you a real nice finished head on this pattern. So lastly, I'm going to go ahead and check the length of my antenna and my legs, and I can trim them off at this point. And then let me rotate the vise so you get to see all sides of this double bead golden stone. The golden stone has really aggressive gills or gill structure on it, so I'll often use my dubbing brush to brush out some of that dubbing and create that gill structure. So that has been your Sunriver Anglers fly tying corner for this month. I hope you'll give the double bead golden stone a try. This has been a good pattern for me up on the Upper Deschutes, the Lower Deschutes, and on the Metolius, as well as other places where golden stones are common. If you like what you see, please subscribe to this page and like Sunriver Anglers on Facebook. Thanks for watching.